The chamber of the Galactic Council was unlike anything a human eye had ever seen. It stretched for miles, layered in rings of light and gravity fields that floated thousands of alien delegates in perfect harmony. At the center was a circle of judgment, glowing blue with authority older than human civilization itself. The Council had ruled the stars for 10,000 years, and today, for the first time, Earth stood before them. 3 humans walked through the entrance gates, their every step echoing against the crystalline floor. The sound was small compared to the hum of alien whispers that filled the vast hall. The moment the humans appeared, the whispering grew louder. Hissing voices, clicking tongues, vibrating notes from species that did not breathe oxygen. At the highest seat, the Grand Arbiter watched them, his eyes flickering with pale light. "Representatives of Sol," he announced, his voice amplified across 1,000 languages. "You stand before the Council accused of defiance against interstellar law. Speak your defense." Ambassador Elias Trent stood at the front. Behind him, 2 aides waited in silence, one holding a data case, the other scanning the chamber's energy field with calm precision. Elias looked up at the spiraling tiers of alien faces, scaled, winged, metallic, and translucent. Every species that had ever risen to the stars was here. Humanity, youngest among them all, stood alone in the center, without armor, without armies, only words. "We thank the Council for hearing us," Elias began, his tone calm, his posture unshaken. "But we are not here to defend ourselves against false accusations. We are here to question the truth of the charges you present." The room erupted with noise. A dozen delegates shouted over each other. A heavy-bodied creature covered in quills slammed its claws on the rail. "Question?" "You will answer. Your colony ships breached the Forbidden Rim. Your fleets crossed our borders without permission." Elias waited until the shouting subsided, his expression unchanged. "Our ships did not cross your borders," he said simply. "They entered unclaimed systems. The Council's own records confirm this, unless you have altered them recently." That last line made the entire hall fall into uneasy silence. Every alien turned to look at the Arbiter's platform. The Grand Arbiter leaned forward, his metallic fingers tapping the edge of his seat. "Are you accusing this Council of manipulation, human?" "I am suggesting," Elias said softly, "that someone among you wants a war, and they think Earth will give it to them easily." A low vibration spread through the chamber. It wasn't anger, it was shock. No one had ever spoken to the Council like that. Not even the oldest species dared to suggest deceit within its walls. From the right ring, a tall crystalline being shimmered. "Human arrogance knows no limits. You gained Council access only decades ago and now question its integrity?" Elias looked directly at it. "If integrity must be questioned for the sake of peace, then yes. We question everything." The words echoed like thunder. The recording drones caught every syllable, broadcasting across the entire galactic network. Billions watched as a single human defied the most powerful body in the galaxy. The Council, which had judged countless civilizations, now found itself judged in return. One of the aides, a young man named Rain, leaned closer and whispered, "Sir, they're pushing for a declaration." Elias didn't reply. He knew. He could see it in the movements around the upper tiers. The Council's political factions, those who wanted humanity removed from the galactic stage, were aligning, ready to vote. The Raxian Dominion, the Vural Coalition, the Traus Empire, all ancient powers that feared what humanity had built in such a short time. The Grand Arbiter raised a hand, signaling for silence. "Ambassador Trent of Earth," he said, his voice deep as thunder. "This Council finds your species in violation of interstellar growth limits. You have expanded into 12 new sectors without approval. You have armed your colonies with quantum defenses. You have refused to submit your fleet registries. You are reckless, dangerous, and uncontrollable. The Council hereby declares sanctions upon Earth. Your trading rights and diplomatic access are suspended. All member states are authorized to enforce compliance by force if necessary." The announcement rippled through the chamber. Every alien eye turned toward the human delegation. Many expected pleading, fear, or defiance, but none came. Elias simply stood there unmoving. He looked up at the Arbiter and said quietly, "So it begins." The Arbiter narrowed his eyes. "What begins?" Elias turned and began walking toward the exit. His aides followed. The crowd erupted into noise again, mocking laughter from some, angry protests from others. A few quiet species, Those who had suffered under the Council's rigid control remained silent. They watched the humans leave, sensing something they couldn't yet explain. Outside the chamber, the corridor curved endlessly, lined with silver walls that glowed faintly with stored light. The air was thin and cold. The aides walked beside Elias in silence until Rain finally asked, "Do we respond to the sanctions?" "No," Elias said. "We let them think we've accepted defeat. They'll make their move soon, and when they do, we'll already be ready." His tone was calm, but his eyes were sharp and unreadable. He wasn't a soldier, but he carried the weight of someone who had seen wars from the inside. "Contact Earth," he continued. "Activate Iron Horizon." The younger aide looked up, startled. "You mean?" "Yes, quietly, and inform every colony governor. We move everything to secure channels. No signals through Council relays. From this moment on, Earth stands alone." As they stepped into the docking bay, hundreds of alien eyes watched from afar. Whispers filled the air. The humans' expressionless faces unsettled them more than open hostility ever could. No one could tell whether it was fear or confidence that drove them. The human ship, a sleek black craft with the Earth emblem engraved in silver, detached from the platform and vanished into slipspace. Back in the chamber, the Council continued to debate. Some representatives celebrated. Others expressed doubt. "Why didn't they protest?" one delegate asked. "Humans always argue." "Perhaps they know resistance is useless," another replied. But an older voice, rough and deep, spoke from the shadows of the upper tier. It belonged to a retired commander of the Trass Empire, one who had fought in the border conflicts centuries before. "No," he said quietly. "If they didn't argue, it means they already have a plan. Humans don't surrender, they prepare." The chamber fell silent again. The Arbiter dismissed the meeting, confident that humanity had been contained. But he didn't see the silent streams of encrypted data already spreading through the Council's network. Seated by a single device the humans had left behind under the floor of the Judgment Circle. Far away, as the human ship crossed the light boundary of the Council's capital, Earth's defense network came alive. Invisible satellites awakened. Quantum links connected colonies. Across the solar system, fleets that had been sleeping for decades received silent orders. Elias stood in the observation deck, watching the stars stretch into long streaks of white as the ship entered faster-than-light transit. His aide approached, hesitant. "Do you think they'll attack?" Elias smiled faintly. "Of course they will. The question is who will survive their mistake first, them or the Council itself?" For a moment he looked down at the planet below, the glowing core of galactic politics fading into the distance. He knew what the aliens didn't yet understand. Humanity had never wanted to rule the stars. They had only wanted to be left alone. But every time someone tried to corner them, humanity learned, adapted, and outgrew its enemies. The stars bent into darkness, and the ship disappeared. Back in the Council's archives, the official record closed with a single note. Earth delegation departed without incident. Compliance expected, but the old commander who had warned them simply stared at the empty chamber, his claws tapping the floor. He had seen that silence before long ago in another war. "They think they've tamed humanity," he whispered to no one. "They don't realize what happens when humans stop talking." Far across the galaxy in the heart of the Sol system, Earth began to wake. The chamber lights dimmed, leaving the Council's grand hall bathed in blue and gold shadows. Thousands of alien eyes watched the screens as the human representative stood once again at the center. No one had expected Earth to return so soon after being sanctioned. The Council had only just finished celebrating their diplomatic victory, believing the humans were broken. But here they were, standing calmly in front of the most powerful assembly in the galaxy. Ambassador Leah Vance was not like her predecessor. She was young, quiet, and sharp in a way that unsettled even the most experienced delegates. Her eyes studied the chamber as if she could see the truth behind the holographic lights and polished marble walls. Around her, the alien seats towered in spirals, each filled with beings that glowed, shimmered, or pulsed with strange life. This was the heart of interstellar power, the Galactic Council, rulers of 1,000 worlds. And yet the silence that hung over them now felt fragile. The Grand Arbiter's voice echoed across the chamber. "Ambassador of Earth, why do you return? The sanctions are final. The Council's judgment is not open to appeal." Leah didn't look intimidated. "I'm not here to appeal," she said softly. "I'm here to warn you. That one word, Amorn, rippled through the tiers like static. Dozens of delegates turned to one another, translating, questioning, whispering. The Grand Arbiter narrowed his golden eyes. Warn us of what? Leah stepped forward into the light. You think Earth will kneel. You think your fleets can surround our system and force us to obey. But you don't understand what you've done. You've united us, the Council erupted. Waves of color flashed from alien throats as translators struggled to keep up. Some species hissed. Others shouted through mechanical amplifiers. Empty threats. One reptilian envoy roared. Earth has no allies, no fleet large enough to resist even a single Council battle group. Leah smiled slightly. You're right, she said. We don't need allies. Her calmness only made the outrage worse. But the Grand Arbiter, curious, raised a hand for silence. Continue, he ordered. Every species in this chamber thinks they know us, Leah said. You call us reckless, unpredictable, emotional. But you've forgotten that emotion is what drives creation. You built this council to control chaos. We built our civilization inside it. You built rules to keep peace. We built willpower to survive anything that breaks it. Her words echoed through the massive dome. It was not arrogance, it was fact, spoken with the quiet strength of a species that had always adapted under pressure. You believe your ships will crush us, she said. You believe your laws will cage us. But what if your fleets vanish before reaching Earth? What if your power turns against you? Gasps filled the air. The Council guards stepped forward, but the Arbiter gestured for them to stop. Are you threatening the Council? He asked coldly. I'm explaining a reality, Leah said. The moment your fleets enter Sol, they will be blind. Not because of our weapons, but because of your overconfidence. The recording drones caught every moment, broadcasting across the galaxy. Billions of beings watched as humanity, once dismissed as a minor frontier species, stared down the greatest power in known space. The Arbiter leaned forward. You will regret this arrogance. Leah turned her gaze upward to the endless tiers of glowing eyes. No, she said quietly. You will. Outside the chamber, after the broadcast ended, chaos erupted in the Council corridors. Some species called for immediate military deployment. Others argued for restraint, fearing humanity's strange confidence. But the Rayleigh Dominion, one of the most powerful military factions, had already made up its mind. Humans are bluffing, their warlord commander growled. We strike now while they are still unprepared. Within hours, the Council authorized a containment operation. Fleets began forming across half the galaxy. Hundreds of warships jumped toward the Sol system, their paths shimmering through slipspace like streaks of fire. Far away, inside the solar system, Earth's night sky looked peaceful. The oceans were calm, cities glowed with quiet light, and no one on the surface could see what was happening beyond the orbit of Neptune. But in the shadows of Jupiter's moons, vast shapes moved. Human ships, black, angular, and silent, were already waiting. Commander Rowan Hale stood on the bridge of the Vigilant Dawn, watching the tactical map unfold before him. Red markers, enemy fleets, spread like infection points across the outer rim. His officers waited for orders. Do we go dark? One asked. Rowan nodded. Initiate total silence. No transmissions. No lights, no signals. They want to find us. Let them come blind. The fleet vanished from sensors. Every human ship disappeared behind a web of distortion fields and quantum masking. It was a strategy no Council species had ever used effectively. They didn't need stealth because they ruled by intimidation. Humans, however, had learned stealth through necessity, through survival. Deep inside Earth's orbital command center, Leah's image flickered into existence. They've launched, she said to the Prime Coordinator. All major powers. Over 300 warships inbound. The Coordinator's expression didn't change. Are the defenses ready? Ready and silent, she replied. They won't see what's waiting for them. The first enemy fleets arrived 3 days later. They came in formation, banners of the Dominion and the Varel shining against the black. To them, the Sol system was small and primitive, a single star with a handful of unremarkable planets. Their plan was simple: surround Earth, shut down communications, seize control of orbital space. Then the first ship vanished. It happened without warning. A Rayleigh cruiser broke formation and blinked out of existence. No explosion, no debris, just silence. Then another vanished. Panic spread. The commanders barked orders, scanning for cloaked weapons, but nothing appeared. The Council ships began to retreat toward the edge of the system, only to find their navigation systems flickering. turning back toward Jupiter against their will. On the vigilant dawn, Rowan watched through filtered data feeds. "They're inside the field," he said quietly. The human defense grid had been hidden for decades, a network of gravity traps, false signals, and micro-singularity mines that mimicked natural cosmic interference. Every ship that entered Sol was walking into a maze built to confuse even the most advanced scanners. One of the enemy captains screamed over open comms, "Our targeting arrays are responding to foreign commands. Who's in control of our ships?" A quiet voice answered through their own network, a human AI coded into the system itself. "You brought your weapons into our home. We will return them to you." Moments later, the Council fleets began firing at each other. Their cannons turned inward, their drives overloaded. Their escorts collided in confusion. From her position on Earth, Leah watched the feed in silence. "This is only the first wave," she said to the coordinator. "They'll send more," he replied. "And when they do?" Leah looked out the window at the blue curve of the planet below. "Then they'll learn what it means to threaten home." On the edge of the solar system, as the last of the Council's first fleet burned in the void, the humans didn't celebrate. There was no cheering, no arrogance, only quiet readiness. They knew what was coming next. The Council would not stop. But what the galaxy didn't know was that humanity hadn't just prepared for defense. For decades, they had studied every member of the Council, their languages, their systems, their networks. They knew how to break them from the inside. In the empty space beyond Pluto, hidden relays came online. Encrypted signals began to travel outward, threading through the same communication channels the Council used to control its fleets. When the next wave came, the humans would already be waiting inside their systems. Leah stood before the window one last time, her voice low. "They called us reckless," she said. "But they never understood that every reckless act we survive becomes our next strategy." The stars outside flickered like sparks before a storm. Somewhere beyond those lights, the Council believed they were marching toward victory. They didn't realize they were walking into humanity's design, a quiet, invisible war that had already begun. The chamber of the Galactic Council was silent for the first time in centuries. Rows upon rows of alien representatives, scaled, furred, feathered, mechanical, and translucent, watched as a single human stood in the circle of judgment. The light above her head pulsed like a heartbeat, scanning every breath she took. It was not just a trial, it was a message to the galaxy. Humanity was to be an example. Ambassador Nolan Gray looked up, his expression unreadable. He was tall, calm, and spoke with the kind of quiet confidence that unsettled the room. Around him floated holographic banners of the Council's crest, symbols of authority older than any human empire. The Grand Arbiter leaned forward. "Ambassador Gray, the Council has declared your species a threat to interstellar stability. You have defied sanctions and attacked a Council fleet. Do you deny these charges?" Nolan's voice was steady. "We didn't attack. We defended our home." The Arbiter's mechanical tendrils twitched. "You destroyed over 100 ships belonging to 5-member civilizations. That is not defense, it is defiance." The chamber's air vibrated as alien voices murmured in disapproval. But Nolan didn't look at them. His gaze moved to the upper tiers where silent observers from neutral worlds sat watching, recording, analyzing. "If you call survival defiance," he said, "then perhaps it's your definition that needs correction." A ripple of sound moved through the chamber. Some laughed in disbelief. Others whispered warnings. No one had ever spoken to the Council this way and lived. The Arbiter's voice grew colder. "Humanity will be contained. The Council has authorized a full-scale intervention. Even now our fleets move toward your system." Nolan smiled faintly, a calm and dangerous expression. "Then I suggest you recall them." The Arbiter leaned back, intrigued. "And why would we do that?" Nolan looked up at the ceiling where the galaxy's star map hung suspended in holographic light. "Because as we speak, those fleets are disappearing." Gasps erupted across the chamber. Delegates shouted, demanding explanation. The Arbiter slammed a clawed hand on the dais. "What trickery is this?" Nolan simply said, "You should check your long-range transmissions." Moments later, communication officers scattered across the tiers began receiving signals. Distress calls, fragmented data, cries for help. The Council's invasion armadas were vanishing one by one. In the far reaches of space, deep within the Sol system, the second wave of the Council's fleet was falling apart. Admiral Kieran of the Valari watched in disbelief as his sensors filled with static. "Report," he demanded. "Sir, our ships are losing position. Navigation systems are locked." "How is that possible?" Kieran shouted. "We're using Council-grade encryption." Before anyone could answer, the view screen flashed white. A neighboring cruiser was gone, swallowed by an invisible field that tore its hull apart molecule by molecule. The rest of the fleet tried to retreat, but their engines no longer responded. Invisible satellites surrounded them, human-made, small and silent, releasing gravity distortions that trapped anything caught within range. The Council had entered the solar system expecting primitive resistance. Instead, they had flown into a perfectly calculated web. Back on Earth, Commander Tessa Vale stood inside the orbital command center, her face illuminated by the glow of data streams. "They've reached the field perimeter," her officer reported. "Good," she said. "Activate Phase 2. Across the dark void of space, thousands of hidden drones powered up. Their engines didn't burn. They bent light around themselves, invisible even to advanced sensors. They drifted among the enemy ships like ghosts. Then they struck. No explosions, just silence. One by one, enemy ships lost control, their systems hijacked. Their shields turned inward, trapping them. Some were forced into each other, colliding slowly like broken machines." Tessa watched the tactical map as red dots blinked out. "Do not destroy them," she said. "Let them surrender or vanish, no debris. No proof." Within hours, the fleet that was meant to crush Earth was gone. Some were disabled, drifting into the void. Others were pulled into Jupiter's shadow, never to be seen again. On the Council's communication channels, panic spread. Entire sectors lost contact. Admirals screamed for reinforcements, but their messages never arrived. Earth's network had infiltrated their communications. In the chamber, the Grand Arbiter stood frozen as the data streamed in. "Impossible," he whispered. "They are humans. They should not have this power." Nolan tilted his head. "Power isn't always about strength. Sometimes it's about understanding how others think. You rely on domination. We rely on preparation." A massive creature from the Raylith Dominion roared, slamming its claws against the railing. "You've declared war on the galaxy." "No," Nolan said, his eyes steady. "You declared it when you thought you could strike us without consequence." The Raylith delegate bared his fangs. "We will erase your world." Nolan stepped closer, his voice now cold. "You already tried. Tell me, how many more fleets do you have left to lose?" The chamber erupted into chaos. Some demanded total annihilation of Earth. Others, fearful now, called for diplomacy. But deep within the chaos, one silent observer, the archivist of the Mirren species, spoke softly to his aide. "Do you see what they're doing? They're not attacking for power. They're showing the Council what fear feels like." On the edge of known space, the remaining Council fleets regrouped. Admiral Kieran, shaken but alive, stared at the fragments of his once proud armada. "How did they do this?" he muttered. "They used no weapons we could detect, no signals we could trace." His second-in-command whispered, "Maybe they didn't need weapons." Back on Earth, Tessa stood on the command deck as the final enemy signals faded. "Status?" she asked. "All enemy ships neutralized or disabled," her aide said. "No losses on our side." She nodded, then turned to her crew. "Send the message." Across the stars, every surviving Council ship received the same transmission. A simple message delivered in every galactic language. "Do not mistake silence for weakness. Earth endures." In the Council hall, the Arbiter read the message aloud. His voice trembled slightly for the first time. "They warn us?" Nolan looked at him calmly. "No, we remind you." The Arbiter's metallic hands clenched. "You have no idea what you've unleashed, human." Nolan's eyes hardened. "We do. That's why we're ready for what comes next." The chamber fell into uneasy silence. No one spoke. For the first time in galactic history, the Council, rulers of the stars, did not know what to do. Outside, in the endless black of space, the remnants of the Council's fleet limped away from the Sol system, broken and humiliated. Behind them, Earth turned slowly in the light of its sun, calm and quiet, its surface unaware of how close it had come to annihilation. In orbit, Tessa watched from her ship, her reflection faint in the glass. "They'll come again," she whispered. "Yes," Nolan's voice replied over the secure channel. And next time, they'll bring everything they have. But now they'll do it afraid. The stars beyond shimmered as the human fleet shifted position, vanishing once again into the dark. The galaxy would speak of this battle for centuries, how a small stubborn world refused to bow, how the mightiest fleet in history disappeared in minutes, and how the Galactic Council for the first time wondered if they had just awakened something they could never control. Back in the silent chamber, the Arbiter stared at the fading holograms of lost ships. His voice barely a whisper carried through the room. "They are not reckless," he said. "They are dangerous because they understand us too well." No one disagreed. The Council's fleets had been built to fight wars, but humanity had just fought with knowledge, patience, and silence. And in that silence, the galaxy began to fear the one species that no one could predict. Somewhere, far from the Council's light, a human signal pulsed once before, vanishing into deep space. It was not a call for help. It was a warning. The message read only 4 words: "We are still watching." The hall of the Galactic Council trembled under the weight of tension. Hundreds of alien representatives sat in silence as the holographic projection of Earth's fleet shimmered above the central chamber. Vast ships, human ships, lined the outer rim of the Sol system. No one expected Earth, a world that joined the Council less than a decade ago, to build such strength in so little time. The vast circular chamber glowed with the cold light of thousands of hovering crystals that illuminated the delegates' faces. Every gaze was fixed on the small platform at the center, where a single human stood. Ambassador Lewis adjusted the small translator node at his ear. Behind him, 2 other human envoys waited, Elena and Dr. Havel. None of them spoke. The silence was deliberate. Every alien in the chamber could feel it, the strange calm that surrounded the humans. It was as if they already knew something the rest did not. The Council Chancellor, a massive serpentine being known for his cold authority, struck the floor with his staff. "The humans have ignored 3 direct orders from this council," the Chancellor hissed, his voice echoing through the chamber. "They refuse to withdraw their ships from the frontier and continue to develop forbidden military technologies. Such arrogance cannot go unpunished." A low murmur spread among the alien representatives. Words like sanctions, containment, and strike authorization floated through the chamber. Elena glanced at Lewis. His expression did not change. Then, from the shadows near the far side of the chamber, a voice spoke, soft but sharp. "And yet," it said, "no one has asked why Earth is preparing." Every eye turned toward the speaker, a human woman dressed in black diplomatic uniform. It was Commander Lyra, Earth's new defense liaison. Her presence was not announced. Even the council guard stiffened at her sudden appearance. She walked slowly to the center of the hall, her boots echoing against the marble-like floor. "Humanity has obeyed your treaties," she began. "We've respected your space, paid your trade taxes, followed your protocols. Yet for all that, our colonies were attacked, our ships intercepted, and the Council turned away every time we asked for protection." The Chancellor's eyes narrowed. "Your worlds are far from the core. Piracy is not our concern." Lyra's lips curved into a faint smile. "Piracy?" she repeated. She touched her wrist console, and the holographic display above her shifted. The image of a raider vessel appeared. Its markings were unmistakable. Gasps rippled through the chamber. The ship bore the insignia of a council member race. The chamber erupted into noise. Dozens of species began arguing, shouting accusations, denying involvement. The Chancellor struck his staff again. "Silence," he roared. "What are you implying, human?" Lyra turned the display again. Now it showed data logs, energy signatures, and communication intercepts. Every record pointed to the same truth. The so-called pirates were not criminals. They were mercenaries hired by factions within the Council. Lewis finally spoke, his voice quiet but heavy with meaning. "Earth was patient," he said. "We sent envoys. We pleaded for justice. But the Council ignored us. So we prepared. If you call that defiance, so be it. But you will not call it weakness." The alien delegates looked at one another in disbelief. Some whispered that the humans were bluffing. Others stared at the holographic data, realizing the implications. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council was not in control of the narrative. The Chancellor leaned forward. "And now," he said coldly, "you threaten the unity of this council with accusations and fear. Your weapons, your fleets, your arrogance, they endanger every world represented here. You will stand down immediately." Lyra raised her head, her eyes calm but unyielding. "No," she said. "We will not." A silence deeper than any before filled the chamber. Lewis took a slow breath. "If the Council continues to turn a blind eye, Earth will withdraw entirely from your governance. We will defend our systems, our colonies, and our people. If that means standing alone, so be it." The Chancellor slammed his staff again, the sound echoing like thunder. "Then you will face the consequences of isolation. The Council does not tolerate rebellion." Lyra stepped closer to the center, her tone cutting through the noise like a blade. "You misunderstand," she said. "We're not rebelling. We're surviving." At that moment, a low hum filled the chamber. Every alien device began to flicker. The holographic displays stuttered. One of the delegates shouted as his console went dark. A second later, the central communication array of the chamber, the one linked to the Council's entire interstellar network, suddenly froze. "What is happening?" shouted one of the envoys. Elena spoke softly. "A demonstration," she said. Lewis nodded. "Your systems rely on quantum channels built on Terran encryption standards," he explained. "We designed them, remember? You wanted efficiency. You got it, but you never asked what else we built into it." The realization spread like wildfire. The humans weren't just soldiers or diplomats. They were engineers, scientists, strategists. Their reach was deeper than the Council ever suspected. The Chancellor's composure cracked for the first time. "You dare hold this Council hostage?" Lyra's gaze didn't waver. "We're not hostages," she said. "We're partners if you let us be." No one spoke for several seconds. The hum of the system slowly returned as the humans restored the Council's network. Lyra lowered her wrist console. "We don't want war," she said quietly. "But if you continue to threaten Earth, you will find that humanity doesn't break. It adapts." The Council's members stared in silence as the humans turned and walked toward the exit platform. No one stopped them. Outside the chamber, the corridors of the Galactic headquarters buzzed with alarmed whispers. Every faction was already recalculating its stance toward Earth. Some saw opportunity. Others saw danger. As the human delegation boarded their small silver shuttle, Elena looked back once more at the glowing spires of the Council's capital. "They're going to retaliate," she murmured. Lewis nodded. "They'll try," he said. "But they have no idea what they're stepping into." Lyra's eyes hardened. "Let them strike first," she said. "The galaxy needs to see who we really are." As their shuttle lifted off, the Council chamber behind them erupted into chaos. Factions began shouting over each other, demanding immediate action. The Chancellor, trembling with anger, called for a full emergency meeting. "If they will not submit," he thundered, "then we will bring war to their world." But even as those words echoed across the hall, deep within the Council's communication core, a hidden message began to transmit, originating from Earth's encrypted network. It was short, simple, and chilling. "We warned you." The transmission spread across dozens of systems before it was contained, leaving one haunting question echoing through every mind in the galaxy. What had humanity prepared that gave them such confidence? As the Council mobilized fleets and debated strategy, a quiet dread grew among their leaders. No one wanted to admit it out loud, but every calculation ended the same way. If they struck Earth, they might not survive the response. The chamber of the Galactic Council was darker than before. The towering walls of Silverstone gleamed with the reflections of thousands of eyes. Alien representatives from every corner of the galaxy gathered in grim silence. The Council's emergency beacon had been active for hours, and yet the one subject that hung in the air, unspoken but heavy, was the same. Earth. The Chancellor stood at the center dais, his scaled hands gripping the edge of the platform as if holding the galaxy together by will alone. Behind him, holographic images of fleets burned in the air, armadas forming along the galactic rim. Ships of countless species, weapons charged, engines ignited. It was not a warning anymore. It was a declaration. "The humans have defied this council," the Chancellor hissed. "They challenge our authority. If we do not act, every world will question our power. We will strike their planet and end this madness before it spreads." A voice rose from the lower tiers, deep, rough, and filled with unease. "You want to strike Earth?" growled one of the elder delegates. A massive, crusted creature with a voice like cracking stone. "Do you even understand what they are capable of?" They crippled our networks without firing a shot. Others murmured in agreement, but the Chancellor silenced them with a thunderous gesture. They used tricks and fear, he barked. But they are still one world. We are thousands. Let the galaxy witness what happens when a primitive species dares to defy the Council. At that moment, the heavy chamber doors opened. Every eye turned. 3 humans walked in, Lewis, Lyra, and Elena. They moved calmly down the long central walkway, past rows of alien guards who stiffened at their approach. No one had invited them, yet none dared stop them. Lewis stopped at the center of the chamber where light from the Council's core beamed down upon him. "You plan to strike Earth," he said quietly, looking up at the Chancellor. "Are you certain you want to do that?" The Chancellor's eyes burned like molten gold. "You have overstepped every boundary this Council has set. Do you think you can threaten us into submission?" Lyra stepped forward. "We're not threatening you," she said. "We're warning you." There's a difference. The hall trembled slightly as she spoke. At first no one noticed the faint vibration, but then the air shimmered and a massive holographic field ignited in the space above the chamber. It was a live transmission. The Council members gasped as they recognized the image. Earth's orbit, but not just Earth. Hundreds of ships, dark and silent, surrounded the planet like a shell of steel. Their shapes were unfamiliar, their configuration unlike any known design. They didn't move, didn't flare with energy. They simply waited. The Chancellor's voice shook with fury. "You brought weapons into the open." Lewis met his gaze. "You misunderstand again," he said. "These aren't weapons. They're warnings." Elena touched her wrist console and the holographic view zoomed in. The ships were strange, sleek, angular, covered in black alloy that shimmered faintly in the light of the sun. "Project Sentinel," she said. "Our planetary defense network. Every satellite, every drone, every ship is controlled by a single adaptive AI system. It calculates faster than any biological mind in this chamber." The murmurs grew louder. "You're bluffing," someone shouted. "No system that powerful could remain stable." Lyra smiled faintly. "Then strike us and find out." For several seconds, silence crushed the air. The image of Earth hung above them, peaceful and calm, surrounded by the silent defense grid. The Chancellor slammed his staff down. "Enough," he roared. "You think your technology frightens us? You think a single planet can withstand the combined fleets of the galaxy?" Lewis tilted his head. "We don't have to withstand them," he said. "We only have to make them stop." The Chancellor's expression flickered. "And how will you do that?" Lewis glanced at Elena. She nodded and activated another sequence. The holographic display shifted again, this time showing multiple points across the galaxy. Small pulses of light blinked in more than 30 sectors. Lyra's voice was steady. "Those are energy signatures," she said. "Your own systems. We've been mapping them for years. Every major fleet relies on Terran-designed communication relays. We built them. We understand their flaws. If you attack Earth, your ships will lose coordination within minutes." The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives shouted. Guards rushed to their stations, and the Chancellor's voice boomed through the noise. "Impossible. You cannot control Council systems." Lewis didn't move. "We don't control them," he said. "We just understand them better than you do." Lyra stepped forward, her voice rising over the uproar. "You think we joined this Council blindly? You thought Earth was naive, eager to belong? No, we studied you. We learned from you. And while you underestimated us, we prepared." The lights dimmed. A deep hum began to pulse from the chamber walls. Every console flickered again. For a brief, terrifying second, the entire network of the Council froze. Communications, navigation, internal systems. Then everything came back online. Elena turned off her console. "That was a simulation," she said quietly. "To remind you how quickly your empire can fall apart." The Chancellor's voice trembled with restrained rage. "You would doom us all with this madness." Lewis looked up. "No," he said. "We're saving you from yourselves. You think unity comes from control, but it doesn't. It comes from respect, and you've forgotten what that means." Lyra took a step closer to the dais. "We don't want war," she said. "But if you bring it to our world, know this. The first strike you make will be your last." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke the air. The Chancellor stared down at them, his mind caught between fury and fear. The human delegation did not wait for a response. They turned and walked toward the exit, their steps echoing through the chamber like distant thunder. As the great doors closed behind them, the council broke into chaos once again. Some demanded immediate retaliation, others shouted for restraint. Old alliances began to fracture right there in the hall. Meanwhile, high above the council world, hidden beyond the system's edge, human ships were already waiting, dark shapes invisible to the council's sensors. They watched, they listened, and they waited. Back aboard their shuttle, Elena sat in silence. Through the viewport, the stars stretched endlessly. "They'll never stop," she whispered. Lewis nodded slowly. "No, but they'll think twice before striking Earth." Lyra stood near the console, her eyes fixed on the blue-green shimmer of their distant home. "They think we're reckless," she said, "but they don't understand. We never wanted to rule them. We just wanted to be left alone." Lewis gave a faint smile. "And that," he said, "is what frightens them most." Back in the council chamber, the chancellor sat alone after the session had ended. The other delegates had left in turmoil, their trust shattered. He stared at the holographic projection of Earth, the small distant planet that had defied an empire. For centuries, the council had believed itself untouchable. But now, somewhere deep in his chest, the chancellor felt something he hadn't known in a very long time. "Fear," he whispered to himself, his voice trembling. "They're striking Earth? Are they insane?" But even as the words left his lips, another thought crept in, cold and certain. No, not insane, just human. And as the galaxy watched, uncertain of what would come next, one truth became impossible to ignore. The era of human submission was over. The age of human strategy had begun.